Okay.
Okay, good. Hi everyone. I'm Dean Clayton, and today, SMAX Practitioner Forum, we're going to do a focus on SMAX Studio. So we're going to look at some of the new stuff that we've got that came with the May release, and hopefully share some ideas of how you can build your own apps, and maybe even set a challenge with you as well. So let's go forward. So obviously, as always, we'll just do a quick little bit about today's session. Then I'll do a little bit of a slide about the new SMAX Studio and the features and capabilities. Then we've got our SMAX Studio app challenge, and we'll wait till we get there before I tell you more about that. And then we'll do the usual wrap up. So just some feedback, and also let you know about obviously upcoming sessions and that kind of thing. And I say, I think if you've got any questions during the session, put them in the chat, and we'll cover them off at the end. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit of time for a bit of Q&A towards the end of the session. Okay, so again, these best practice sessions, it's about providing guidance on the out-of-the-box processes and tool capability. So understanding how you can obviously use that to your benefit, either as a customer or an implementer. It's also make sure we understand we've got common understanding around the principles that we use. So what do we mean when we say SMAX? Well, obviously the application. And also how we get the most out of it, and obviously share use cases and best practices from yourselves. So what you're all doing out in the field as customers, as professional services or partners, and being able to bring that to the forum for other people to share and understand what you've done. And actually, I've got some of that as part of today's session as well, which is really good. Okay, so it's on SMAX Studio. So what is SMAX Studio? So SMAX Studio is basically the ability to do codeless administration of new and existing applications within SMAX. So where, as people may be aware of what it's called, back in Service Anywhere or in the earlier versions of SMAX, we used to have an administration record section. That's now branded as Studio. And not only is it where you can do the modifications that you might want to do to your configuration to your existing records and applications and modules, the ability to add new ones as part of that. So when you then dive into Studio now, you get the view like you had before, the records type view, but there's also a new menu option as well, which allows you to basically start to create those new applications. And later on in this session, I'm going to go through a full video of creating a new application. So we'll be able to see that in its full context when we get there. But the concept is basically you go through a process of creating a new app. So with its new entities, its new records, should we say. Choose obviously where you want that to appear within the application, either under plan, build, or run. Then you create the data model, so fill out the obviously fields that you want to set on that record. Create the relevant forms that you need. So there's a standard set of 3 forms to begin with, so new, preview, and full. And then build out the actual workflow where you then apply your business rules. Okay, so there's a step-through process of building out that, and it's all codeless, all through the interface. No need to write any code. And once you've done that, you can activate it and treat it just like any other module you've got in the system. Now that's obviously quite high level and quite quick, but you can, in the amount of time and effort you're going to spend on building out an application is really going to depend on what type of application you're going to build. And you've got obviously other options around things like your notifications, custom actions, and obviously the relevant business rules or approvals and test plans. Okay, so key use cases around Studio. So really it's about obviously creating new process-based applications. So think about it, the fact that you've got the ability to build your own process flow. You can build out the metaphases, the phases, the transitions, and everything that goes between that, and obviously all the fields that you need on that. The other one is obviously creating supporting tables to be used maybe for your new applications, or actually in the case of an existing application. Maybe you need to create a new entity type. Maybe it's a particular way of handling items, maybe something like lost and found in a facilities management type perspective, and then utilize that on your other processes. So anything that you create as a new entity is available to be linked to from all your existing entities in the system. All right. So whereas on the February release, if you were creating a new entity link field, you only have the option of person or group. With the May release, and obviously going forward, that's going to obviously extend even more. You've got the ability to choose any type, either a person, group, or any new entities you create. Finally, then, is obviously expanding the codeless configuration features to the existing applications as well. So when we talk about Studio, we kind of think about the shiny new applications, but it's also about building out additional functionality to what you have today. Good example of that, which I'll mention again later on, is the custom actions and the fact that you can now run a workflow from a custom action. Okay. Obviously, with the May release, it's kind of our first real release of SMAX Studio, and obviously some of the features and functionality that we have that's in that release are going to be extended over the next coming releases that we've got with the product. So when we talk about capabilities, we talk about the various different things. As you can see here, we've got the ability to create obviously tables with the forms and the workflows. You can also create one-to-one record types, one-to-many, and many-to-many entity links between different tables. So if you create a new record type, you can then use that to reference any other record type that's in the system in any of those kind of ways, and then put that onto your forms as well. So you've got that visibility. And likewise, then that allows you to access it in the other direction as well, should you need to. We've also included the ability to add approvals to new process applications. Basically, you can obviously define a phase to have an approval. Now, with those approvals, there's obviously the governance level approval capability within the record types. The concept of, should we say, models, similar to what we have in like incident or change management, or offerings that we have in Service Catalog, don't exist yet. So obviously you have to think about how you do those approvals, but you've got the ability to set those up or have them so they're available to manually create should you need to during the workflow of that particular record type. We've also then got the custom actions that can call business rules, and again we'll talk about that a bit later on. But you can also set service level targets as well, so set SLTs against your new applications and set the appropriate start, stop, and suspend conditions. So if you need to maybe put an SLA on the record type, you can do that within the system. In regards to some of those basics, pretty much similar to how you have today when you're creating a new record type. You can obviously add entries, add fields to a table. So from a process point of view of creating your new Studio app, you'd first you click on the menu option, which you can see, which appears and shows you what it's in that top picture. Then decide where it's going to be, and then create the record types underneath that. So when you create those record types underneath it, you can then basically treat them as a record type in the same way as request or incident or change or tasks. Obviously, you can create more than one for the application, and they would appear on the tabs that you would see at the top as you jump to that particular menu option. And again, we'll show you that when we run the video a bit later, the demo in a short while. After you create that, obviously you can then create fields to the table. So just like before, you've got all the standard fields and entity links, but also relations as well, which can be set, which are obviously many to many, and you have that bi-directional configuration of how you set those up. And it's all fairly straightforward through the GUI to do that. define your forms, and then configure the workflow, and obviously add the business rules to that workflow as you had before. One of the key things to note with the workflow and when you're building out that workflow is you can only define the metaphases once. So as part of that process of creating it, you need to think about how you're building out that record type and the workflow for that record type, so that you've got the appropriate metaphases that you need. If obviously you've made a mistake and you haven't created enough metaphases, you don't have the option to modify that. You would have to go and create a new record type to go down that route. So just something to be aware of when you're playing around with those things. In regards to the phases and the transitions, those you can create as many of those as you need. That's not a problem. It's just those larger metaphases, those blue bands that we see on the workflow tab. And again, with the business rules, exactly the same as before. You've got all the business rules that you had available to you to add into the system. The only difference is you're starting from a blank slate. There's no pre-configured because it's a new record type. There's no out-of-the-box rules set up on there for you to use. So you need to obviously start to add those in. So think about those things around notifications, maybe how you're handling those transitions, mandatory fields, and those kind of things. As part of those new record types, and the screenshot that's on there is an example one that was done by a colleague, is you can create approval definitions on there. So the ability to add approvals onto your new application. To do that, all you need to do is obviously define on a phase that it's going to enable an approval plan for that phase. Once you've done that, you can go to the approval definitions and set up the default approval definition for that phase. Okay, one of the other things that's quite powerful that's brought to this part of Studio, which maybe not something you're thinking about for a new application, but could also be really powerful for existing applications, is the new custom actions option. So on SMAX Studio, previously you had the option of, as a custom action, to run, link to a URL. With the new one, Enable Workflow, this allows you to trigger business rules that run. In the last Practitioner forum I did, which was the focus on incident management, which was about a month ago, and the recording's available from the community forum. I actually went through doing this for setting a major incident on an incident record. So there's a good example there of how it works and how you set it up should you want to go down that route. The other thing you've got is obviously defining your service level management. So as part of that, you can define the service level targets and obviously the stop, start and suspend. So when you set your SLT settings, obviously you need to map which is the service field you're using, the priority field, and any group fields you're using for the assignment-based targets that you would have. Again, it's fairly straightforward and works pretty much like you'd have it else. Once you've created it and you've enabled it, then you go to your service level management module and you'll be able to create your SLTs or add them in there as part of that. Before we get to the demo, so kind of a couple of ones that examples that have already been built. One that I did as a proof case, just to see if it was possible, was a World Cup 2018 planner. So I created three record types: match, groups, and teams. And then off the back of those, loaded some data in of the initial matches and obviously the team records, and then had it so that it would update and keep me update with things like the goal difference and who won, who lost, and the draws of the various different and the points that were scored during the group stages. And then after the group stages, it would auto update each round as to which of the teams that were put through and who they would be playing next. And all that I needed to do to update it was, for each match, I would literally just go in and put in the score, the home team score and the away team score, and save the record, and that would update and then pass it through. I was intending, given that England almost got to the World Cup final, I was intending to do a bit more of a demo on this, but as we got knocked out by Croatia last week, and obviously France won the World Cup, I decided I'd do my demo on a different application. But if anyone's interested in sort of seeing how I was put together, I'll happily share that after this. A couple of other ones that we've done, mainly that we've done, some of my colleagues in pre-sales have done for customers. So things like capacity management, service continuity, and risk management. You know, having a record type to store the information that's needed about that and linking it to the other records. So more about the record types and what are the plans around those kind of things. We've also had one particular customer look at facilities management. So whereas that's something that may have primarily been driven out of the request module, and utilising that as a starting point, they then hooked that up to create a few new extra record types specifically for facilities management. So such as visitor logging and things like lost and found. So the ability to kind of, as an end user, request, say that I found something or I've lost something, and then have almost like an asset register type thing for managing those items in the cupboard. Okay, so in regards to those, we've got some recordings which the colleagues have done around some of those. And hopefully we'll start to share those on the community platform over the next few weeks. But if needs be, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'll happily provide some of those recordings that we've got. Now, in regards to those, some of those they were done in response to a little challenge that a couple of us have kind of put together around building SMAX applications. And under the hashtag SMAX Studio App Challenge, and we're kind of throwing it out to you guys as well on the call if you're interested, is what can you do in 15 minutes? All right, what can you build in 15 minutes, be it a new application or anything else? So we kind of see it as four areas. So obviously, for us, we're trying to identify customer use cases, or maybe do something thinking outside the box. So things like that World Cup app that I did. Didn't take me 15 minutes, it took me about 3 hours, but admittedly the majority of that was data loading rather than actually building the application. We also want people to be able to record what they do, so document it so it can be potentially recreated. Obviously, with the way that the application is right now, there's not an easy way to extract out an application you build to put it into another one. So a lot of what the people that have been starting to do these have done is they've recorded the process of doing it with a video recording just to show how it's been put together. We also want people to share. So share your Studio app so we can start to promote it and put it on the community forum and get a bit more feedback from other people. But also how you would extend it. As we all know, this 15 minutes isn't a huge amount of time when you want to build something out. So there's obviously going to be cases where you're going to want to extend it beyond that. That said, if you took longer than 15 minutes, that's fine. This was just really sort of an initial kind of see what we can do in a short pace of time to be able to build an actual application out. All right. If you want to take longer and share that, we're all for that, and we'll be looking forward to seeing those and potentially share them through these Practitioner forums at a later date. So in regards to that SMAX Studio App Challenge, what did I do? So I did a Kanban board. Okay, so hopefully most of you are aware of what a Kanban board is, but obviously a Kanban board is designed to give you a common approach to manage activities that anyone could do. Maybe it's kind of sort of like your to-do lists, that kind of thing. So really, the concept that I put together was be able to create an item to add to a Kanban board for each activity I want to do. Have 3 stacks. So in a typical Kanban way, you have a to-do, a work in progress, and a done. So how am I going to manage the activities through that process? And as I work on each activity, be able to update the status until everything is done. So moving it from that to do through to done. Okay, so I've got a demonstration that I'm going to go through. Actually, in this case, I built it in less than 15 minutes. So I've included within the video actually using it as well. So let's run through that. So first things first, we go to Studio and we click on Menu and we decide where we're going to put our actual application. So the first thing we want to do is obviously we want to name it. So in this case, we're going to call it Kanban board. And we'll just set the multilingual title and obviously the header that you would see. And I'm going to add it to the first one in under there. Next thing I need to do is I need to add my record types. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my Kanban item. And again, just like before, set my labels and obviously how it would appear as a submenu within the system, and also what might be displayed in the browser, and determine where I'm going to set that. The final thing is setting the primary key. In most cases, I tend to use display field as an additional primary key, so that's quite useful in that case. But you don't need to necessarily do that. You can use another field and not have a primary key. Next thing that I wanted to do is to make it a little bit better. I decided to create a Kanban project, a record type as well. So there's a way to kind of group those items into different projects that they're going to use. And again, with this one, I use the display label or the title as that primary key. After creating it, before I activate it, I need to add the extra fields where I want to it. So I start to create them just in the same way as we do any of the others. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to create an assignee field. I'm going to do an entity link. And as you can see, because it's a new record type, I've got the ability to choose any record within the system. Okay. Next one I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Kanban project link. So in the same place, I'm going to create an entity link to my other record type that I've created, the Kanban project. I'll enable sort on that, and there we go. And we'll add that in and save that. Now, the one thing you will notice from adding these custom fields is that actually there's a load of extra fields that are added into the system as well. So there's a standard set of fields that will exist on all record types you create. Now we need to create a workflow. So first we'll give it the process name, and then we'll create my first phase, which I'll call to do, and then we'll create the meta phases. So in my example here, I think I create 3 meta phases. So to do, work in progress, and done. Now you don't necessarily need to do this, and from a point of view of doing this kind of activity, it might be a case that you might just decide to have 1 meta phase. But for this example, I decided to have the 3 to make it give a bit more exposure of what we're doing. I then created a connected phase, so work in progress, and then connected the 3rd one after we move that to the correct meta phase, and then created the 3rd phase of done. Add that in. Now, for this particular example, I decided I didn't want to put any sort of hard-coded rules around the transitions, but what I wanted to do was have the ability to move between all those different phases as required. So we just add those transitions in, just as we've done before in the past, whenever we need to add a transition in SMAX prior to this. Okay, so we've got our transitions in place, and then decided that we'll add some simple rules in. So we'll make a field mandatory, and that'll be the assignee when we're in work in progress. So that way we can see who's working on that ticket. The next step to do is to add our forms. So in this case, I'm going to create my Kanban item form. I'm going to add the various fields that I want onto it. So in this case, display label, assignee, and the Kanban project, and put them in there. And as you can see, when you do that, you can create the new sections and set them up. In this case, I create a couple of sections, and obviously I'm hiding the header. One thing to note, you do need to set those titles for those sections. If you don't, you will get an error, or it won't allow you to save the actual record type, the form. After creating that form, obviously I'll then do the same for the preview form. and pretty much do it in exactly the same way. So you can, same process. And again, just move them around just to make it a little bit tidier. So they're on the same on new lines, and set those labels again and hide the headers so that we don't have them when we see the preview. And finally, obviously a new Kanban item. In this case, we want to keep this nice and simple, so we just keep the three fields in and allow the user then to just do the very basics that they need to create the Kanban item. Obviously, we don't need to have all the other fields on it because it's just about getting the data in the first case. Okay, so we've created our Kanban item, and we'll activate that now. So we'll activate that, and that now is available in the menu. But let's go and tidy up the project one. And you can see there's all those extra fields that are created as part of it. And in this case, we'll make sure that the display label is set to title. One thing to note is if you modify things like the title, the label for those, that does affect all new record types. So if you are going to create custom field, when you're going to create new fields, recommend obviously creating its custom field types when you need to do that, just so that you don't go and accidentally change the label of something that you perhaps you shouldn't. With this one, again, I kept it nice and simple. I had a simple two meta phase approach and two phases, just active and done, just to show how easy it is to set those up. Again, no real rules around this. Just wanted to put the basics in there. But what I wanted to do is on the Kanban project form is actually show all the items are related to that Kanban project. So first thing with a new one, we just want the title. That's fine. And to make it easier as well, one of the things that I thought about with this Kanban project was I don't really want to go into the records all the time. Just having the preview is probably going to be enough for me for everything I do. So in this case, I started to create it so that the preview setup was more usable for me in that case. And here we just added a new one-to-many to show all the Kanban items that are related to that project. Now, one of the other things I did was modified the columns so that they're all in the order that I wanted, and remove the ones that I didn't need, and move them around to make it a little bit easier to see. Okay, and because we wanted to make sure that it was the same, I did the same with the full Kanban project. Now, as you can see, probably the biggest job that you'll probably be doing when you're creating new apps is messing around with your forms and setting those up. But once you've done your initial one, obviously you've got those up and running, and then you only need to modify them as you need to. Right now, with the way the studio is set up, you only have the 3 out-of-the-box forms set up for your new record type. So new, preview, and the full version. Okay, so we save that. That's all there. Okay, so let's go back to the menu. We've built our app now, I think. So if we go and we see our Kanban board, and let's activate the projects as well. Okay, and we go to our main menu, and you can see Kanban board now has appeared on the menu, and we've got our Kanban items and our Kanban projects. Now, what we want to do is we want to use it. So the first thing that I thought about was going back to the original premise of this idea was to have my 3 stacks: my to-do, my work in progress, and my done stack. So what I did, created 3 views for those three different values based on the phase that I'm in of those records. So quickly create those. So we've got those. Okay, cool. So we've got our three things. So then let's create our Kanban item, and let's see how it is. And in this case, we'll create a Kanban item of create Kanban board. I'll assign it to myself. And we don't have a project, but let's add a couple more in there as well. So we'll create some Kanban items, and again, we'll assign it to me. And we'll create a Kanban project as well. Okay, so in that case, obviously, I didn't say it was assigned to me. Just see it works. So we'll create a Kanban project. It's our 10-minute app. And as you can see, we've not got no items associated with it. So we're going to go to our Kanban boards, and we're going to edit it, and we're going to set the Kanban project, and save the record, and moving it to its next phase. In fact, we've done that, created a Kanban board, so we can close that one off as done. In regards to the items, that's work in progress. And the Kanban project we've also now done as well. So we can save that and do that. Then we go to our work in progress, and we can see we've got our items in our project. Well, I've built my all the work now, so we can close those off and mark them all as done. There we go. If we go to our done, we can see all our Kanban items are done, and we've got them all completed. And that's it. And that was it. All right, there's an app in 11 minutes, 23 seconds, including a demo, and a lot of talking by me. So obviously with that, it was a basic Kanban board, just to kind of show the idea of building out that kind of concept so that you can utilize that and having multiple record types and showing the different forms around the system. Now, if I was going to extend that and maybe productize it a little bit more, a couple of things that I thought about as a starting point was obviously including assignment to groups. So at the moment I've got it assigned to individuals, but you could have it so you could have groups in there as well, so you can start to group all the data and what you want to do. The other thing I was thinking about as well is being able to link it to all the records in SMAX. So maybe creating some more entity links, allow me to link it to requests or everything else. In essence, potentially have it so it's a way that I can handle what's on my to-do list as a developer or a support agent sitting in third line. Maybe have it set up so those are the things that I need to work on this week. Maybe link it to the incident records or a problem record to do some investigation that I want to do. The final one as well that I thought about to extend it is notifications and reminder emails. So typically with any kind of to-do list where you've got things that are work in progress that you need to work on, you probably want to have set up some emails to say, something's been allocated to you maybe or assigned to you. But also maybe wants to remind you maybe after 7 days if it's still open or a couple of days to go and go and work on it and maybe close it off. Those are some of the ideas that I could do to extend it out. And really, after that, it's about then sort of throwing that out to you. So throwing the gauntlet down, the challenge to you who are listening on this about going out there, have a look at Studio, have a play with it, get involved with it, and maybe start to build out your own apps. And if you do, we really look forward to being able to see those. Share them with us with the wider community. And if you want to highlight those on a future session, we'll be more than happy to do so. We have got some other apps outside of that Kanban one that we've done and we've done recordings on, so we can share those. And we'll share those on the community platform as well, so you can have visibility of those over the next couple of weeks.
Actually, Dean, that was one of the questions: is whether they could see the recording of the capacity and facilities app.
Yeah, sure. That's not a problem. Neville put those together, and I think we've already got the slide deck with the videos embedded for those. So that can be done.
So we just need to figure a way to post them, or at least send them to Kate, who asked the question.
Yeah, sure, not a problem.
Okay.
Do that.
Another question came in privately was, can you have different prefixes for the different record types, prefixes for the tickets for the different records?
You can't. Basically, when you create a record type, you obviously give that a name of some description. So I guess maybe the idea that's coming from there is the concept of things like Service Manager, where an incident has IM in front of the number. SMAX doesn't work like that. SMAX has a unique ID across the board, so that there's no overlapping of numbers between the different ticket types. So when you type in a number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for instance, that could be a request. It could be a Kanban item. It could be a person record. So they are all unique. So we don't have prefixes on those record types. Does that answer the question?
We'll let this person, yep, she says thank you. She's
Okay.
Texting privately, but yep.
Okay, cool. Any other questions?
One more. What color are the new record types given?
Okay. So they're all given a pale blue colour. I guess that may be something we might look at if there's a desire to maybe choose your own colour. I think maybe raise an idea on the idea exchange, and we can look at that.
Yep, good idea for the idea board. I think that's it for questions.
Okay. All right, cool. So obviously we've got the application help center. There's documentation on there, as well as we've got the community forums, and there's the Getting Started guide and the configuration guide. At the moment, we haven't updated the Getting Started and configuration guides with anything about SMAX Studio, but we're going to look to do that over the coming months. We're also, obviously, with things like these videos that we produce in, the impression I'm getting from a lot of people is that's a little bit easier to follow than maybe something that's like a dry PDF, but so we'll make sure those are obviously available for people to learn and play around with. And in regards to obviously ideas for anything, reach out to Tonya or myself if there's anything you want us to cover in future topics. And obviously, if you can just do a quick survey, that would be really useful, just to kind of give some feedback on today. Obviously, we've gone quite quickly through Studio as an initial pass. So certainly from my perspective, I'd be really keen to get some feedback from yourselves about ideas that you have for new modules, for new apps, you know, and be really looking forward to show those as part of these sessions, as future sessions. But outside of that, if there's any you know, other modules maybe that you want us to have a look into for these sessions, we can happily do that. I know that we're planning to start to look at some of the others now that we've done Incident and the last one. Okay. And then oh, I didn't update the slide, but quite properly. So the next session, well, obviously was today, but the next one we've got, I think, Tonya, is that correct? Is in office hours on the 1st.
Yep.
So yep. So drop-in session. Obviously, ask questions. I'll be on there if there's any questions. So if you have questions about SMAX Studio that you maybe think about after this, feel free to bring them at that session. And then August the 15th, I believe, is the release readiness for the next SMAX release. Is that correct, Tonya?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Any previews you want to tell us about, or is it too early?
Well, I think yeah, it's probably a bit early. Just it'll be we generally have 1 to 2 webinars per release, and we'll be having 1 for this one. We'll have 1 for SMAX and 1 for SM. Yeah, but we'll give an overview in that call.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you all for your time today. Hope you found this focus on SMAX Studio useful, and look forward to hearing from you on the apps you build.
Thank you, Dean. Thanks, everybody, for joining.